Welcome to History of Heroes, where we detail the storied pasts of your favorite intrepid adventurers from before they joined the table and became part of our evolving world. Today's hero is Betheniel Silverray. The elven cleric with a fear of nobles has had a long journey, as have most whose lifespans extend as far as his. He was born in 1392, amid very troubled times, his mother cradling him, then known as Niel, and his twin sister Beth as she fled an ancient tower surrounded by cultists of Bane. His father, Corfell, tapped into the weave around the tower, which was unstable and volatile, using that to bring it down around his ears. When the dust settled, no cultists remained, but neither did Corfell. Such are the risks taken by collectors, mages sent to acquire powerful magical artifacts to keep them out of the wrong hands. Kaelin returned to Waterdeep and told the tale of her husband's disappearance to their benefactor, the House of Wonder. While their agents investigated, Kaelin settled down with her young ones in the dock ward, with some assistance from the House of Wonder in building a civilian life. They kept a low profile, and she began running a small tavern known as the Shining Bow. Though she wondered if she would ever see him again, fate found Corfell returning to a home built in his absence. While he missed the earliest days, for a time after, the Silverray family lived a happy life in Waterdeep, together. Kaelin had taken a liking to civilian life and found herself enjoying the fleeting games of humans and their social politics. Corfell, however, had not lost his lust for adventure and continued taking missions for the House of Wonder. As the twins aged, Beth grew more adventurous and passionate and was closer with her father. She begged him to tell her tales of his quests and found mischief herself while he was away. Niel, however, was more of a homebody and was closest with his mother. As he grew and took an increased interest in the arcane arts, Kaelin nurtured his scholarly side, and soon they had both set their sights on a prestigious future for him, learning magic at Blackstaff Academy, an institution for only the elite and exceptionally gifted. Gaining entrance would be a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for a human. Luckily for Niel, he had many more than just one. Over the following decades, Niel studied profusely, but also served as a pawn in his mother's games, vying for influence among the Round-Ears. He became quite familiar with running errands, delivering messages, and tutoring the mage-hopeful heirs to several noble families, imparting on them his knowledge as tokens of gratitude. His mother planned to one day cash them all in for a seat at Blackstaff for her treasured son. Patience, she always said. Enough patience and you can have anything. By 1462, the young elf lad was relatively well known in scholarly circles, and Kaelin was neck-deep in the politics of Waterdeep's nobility. Around this time, Beth, having grown more independent than ever, had a blazing argument with her mother. Niel never knew the details, but he did know that Beth left soon after, with his father, on presumably another mission for the House of Wonder. In the many years that followed, they never returned. Still, two's company, and Kaelin found them a much nicer home in the Sea Ward as they continued raising their social profile. Thus their life remained in stasis, each comfortable in their routines, building toward a distant future. It was not until 1483 that a new opportunity presented itself. Blackstaff's restricted library was the stuff of legend, containing tomes of great power that were not permitted to be read by any but faculty, and those they approved. One of these tomes had gone missing, and had found itself in the possession of one Marcus Renaer, a lad that Niel had tutored for years, and considered something of a friendly acquaintance. An envoy of the lad's sponsors came to the Silverrays and offered a shadowy deal. If Niel would take the blame, Marcus's academic career would be protected. There would be quite the social stir, surely, but in exchange, once it died down, he would be given a seat at Blackstaff, decades ahead of when they expected that to be remotely possible. Well hesitant, the pair discussed it, and eventually agreed. Kaelin was delighted at her timelines being moved up so considerably, and Niel equally motivated to start his schooling in earnest and protect one of the few folk he actually cared for in his cloistered lifestyle. What they were not informed of was the severity of the crime. The tome was not just returned to the library with a slap on the wrist, as Niel was captured by the city officials and whisked away to the dark room to be interrogated. Breaching the security of Blackstaff was no small feat, and learning the secret of how it was done, who paid him to do it, what tool was used, it was paramount. What neither Niel nor his mother could have expected was the caliber of individual that would get involved in the investigation. With many heavy questions and few answers to give, Open Lord Neverember himself chose to oversee Niel's interrogation, offering assurances that he would leave no stone unturned. Unusual as it was, the Lord's influence allowed him to bend due process as he pleased, so it was that Niel realized he wasn't going to be let off with a slap on the wrist, as he and his mother had previously thought. For several days and nights, the Lord and his chief interrogator saw the young elf tortured. They inflicted unbearable pain using cruel arcana that pushed him to the point of death, only to pull him back using healing magics. Despite the hell he endured, Niel never confessed. The aloof and relatively sheltered elf could have lived with many things. Losing his friends, his station, and even his freedom. What he could not turn his back on, though, was the Light of Sehanine. Each time he was interrogated, her light shone upon him through the barred windows of his cell, and he could feel her there with him, lending him the inner strength he needed to resist the questioning. It was only when his suffering had ended that he understood. Such was his faith that in the darkest moment of his life he discovered a source of unwavering determination, and in turn was found by a light brighter than any he had known. Left in his cell, a mere inch from death, physically broken but not mentally, he basked in her light, and it soothed him. He had worshipped Sehanine Moonbow since he understood her existence, his dedication having bordered on an obsession that worried even his mother with the fanatical shrine he kept, his books filled with drawings and stories that would likely have made any normal worshipper rather furious. In those moments, though, alone with the moon, bathed in her light, a sense of peace and strength flowed through him. It was here that he found his love for his goddess returned in kind, and all it took was one glance from her above to ignite his undying faith. Finding the young elf unbreakable, Open Lord Neverember convinced the masked lords that the tower was secure through other avenues. Though he could not simply free Niel without suspicion, further imprisonment and torture without his supervision risked his cruelty being unmasked. Fortunately for Neverember, and unfortunately for Niel, the Open Lord was never without a plan, and with the War of the Silver Marches ongoing, Niel was quietly assigned to a penal battalion, and dispatched to earn his freedom through service, or, more likely, through death. The war was brutal, and it was here that the young man strengthened his bond with his goddess and honed his magical abilities, as the many casualties required healing far beyond his natural capacity. Being pushed to his limits daily, surviving on a prayer and dumb luck, it was here that he met Arthur Hawthorne, a volunteer who took him under his wing, protected him on the field, and became one of his earliest real friends. It was in between battles that Arthur asked the young elf to watch over his family were anything to happen to him on the field of battle. By fortune, they both made it out alive, despite the bloody defeat they suffered at the Battle of the Cold Vale, and the bloodshed wrought at the retreats that followed, though the promise he made would shape the elf's life for years to come still. You'll all be able to see this story play out for yourselves with the release of a mini-series covering the last battle of the Silver Marches that they shared together in a prequel to the best available, coming soon on the Forever DM's channel. Eventually, they returned to Waterdeep, blessedly grateful for the peace and quiet of home. Seeing her son after his return changed, hardened, both less timid and yet more cautious than she had ever known him to be, Kaelin realized that she had been coddling her son, and she was partly to blame for him being taken in so easily by those who would do him harm, her guilt causing her to wander and leave him to grow on his own as she sought out things that had always interested her to whittle away the hours. Despite this distance, she always kept an eye on her son from afar, watching his journey with pride. Niel now lived in an empty home, with nothing but his memories of the past, and the quiet hours wore away at him. His mother contacted him occasionally, but the disappearance of his father, and especially his sister, left him feeling hollow, the memories of their childhood antics being one of the things he missed the most. After receiving a package from his wayward father and sister, the young elf conceived a plan to bring his sister calling, wanting little more than to see her again. Instead of replying with his own name, Niel took a combination of their names, retitling himself Betheniel, in the hopes that his sister would appear. Whether it was that she took umbrage at his actions, or amusement, he didn't care, but as the 10 days passed, no response came. In truth, his reply lay in the House of Wonders, unopened, as his sister and father had been quickly drawn away. After several months of insulating himself and trying to plot his own course, the young man decided he would keep the name, until the day came for him to partake in his coming of age, still hoping that somehow his sibling would hear of it and come calling. For as many years as he waited, she never did. So with his family scattered to the winds, his academic prospects dashed, and little else to hold on to, Betheniel found comfort in the arms of Sehanine. dedicating himself to her practice and spending most of his days in her temple, yet insulated from others. The days were peaceful, and he came to not just value her presence in his life, but what she stood for, the way she sought to help others. Her creed became his, and when a young girl came to find a priest to perform funeral rites for her mother, with big blue eyes that held the same conviction as the brow of her father, Arthur, he knew his promise to that man had come calling. Over the next days, he learned of all he'd missed while cloistered away. Arthur's arrest, the assassins, the death of Sabine. He resolved to protect this family for as long as it took for Arthur to find his way home. That matter was complicated when he visited the next morning to find Angela missing, having left only a note. When Cecily, with tears in her eyes, begged Betheniel to find her sister, how could he refuse? If a journey was what it took, that is what he would do. It was not his first. The elf set off on the road, searching the Sword Coast for clues of the missing Hawthorne. He eventually found word that a similar young lad had taken place on board a pirate vessel, and was sailing the Sword Coast. Wild, but safe. Thank Sehanine. Betheniel sent word through what means he could, eventually finding Captain Helena's ears, begging her to return Angela home to Waterdeep's docks. It was soon after the girl had found a dead end in the hunt for her mother's assassin, and so, with some encouragement to return, Angela sailed home to Waterdeep to meet her siblings, who were worried sick and a positively exhausted-looking elf. Since that day, Betheniel has stood by Angela's side, doing whatever he could to ensure her safety, even going so far as to pick up a weapon and fight by her side, and enter himself into a contest for madmen and those with a death wish. Sometimes he wishes Angela hadn't inherited her father's fearlessness. Most times, though, he feels lucky to have walked in the company of heroes. Thank you for watching, and thanks to our wonderful supporters that make up our little community, watching us stream the best available and everything else you see on this channel live to our supporter-only Discord. It's quite active in there, with many playing in these games or others, and even running their own. This channel wouldn't exist without each and every one of you, which is why I read each and every name against my crying editor's wishes, starting with those in the power tier. Dark Sarah, Darth Cavalier, Doodle Poodle, Emanon, Jay Jones, John the Wicked, Joshua Williams, Sneaky G.I., and the Traveling Bard Extraordinaire. In the Planar tier, Ice Commander, Ice Dragon, and Sparkle Lord the Fabulous. In the Adventurer tier, All's Fiction, Bastion Falconwrath, Dragon Tempest, John R300, Justin, Katie, Moshope Akinwale, Mystics, Ty Korjak, and V. In the Questgiver tier, Breezebender, Chris Householder, Cold Brad, Dark Sarah, Jesse Labrie, Link FD, Kyla, Lunatic Overlord, Night Archer, Mitsuya VA, ODST Hero, PPNTT807, Robert Edwards, Robert Mischief, Rio 1990, Sephiroth Kurosame, Sin for You, and Y87. In the Townsfolk tier, Adrian, Blizzard Hawk, Bird or the Cage, Biz Adrian, Brett Bemis, Dylan Taylor, Doodle Poodle, Enrique, Gordy Danke, Kazuko, Lone Soul 6, Love Bites Back, Mordant Dragon, Scott Stedman, Sense Backpack, Sergeant Humpty, Sherlock, Shugenja, Tom Brazo, Wicked Ways, and Zanair.
I'ma be real, this one was laid out the door, fellas. I got it done, but I put the file where Corwin says, special mention to Sion Magnus and Samuel Wolf. Somewhere else, I can't find it. Our creative team, Doodle Poodle, Niel Fontaine, artist, Shadow Wolf, he does other stuff. Scorpius does other stuff. I'm MC Cheshire. My friend's Thriving Inferno. I asked him to help me, and he does. And the Forever DM is himself. I'll find the file next month, man. It's like 3:35 a.m.